Let me tell you a story that will help illustrate the importance of setting boundaries. A few years ago, I was working for a company and I was really happy to have joined there. Most of my colleagues were new, just like me, and we had a manager who oversaw us and came to talk to us every day. In those first few months of work, the manager started spending a lot of time in my room and sharing a lot about her family, her life, and her thoughts about this workplace. She then started sharing stuff about my colleagues with me, how everyone had this problem or the other, how stingy the management was, how the management does not know this and that, and other kinds of gossip about my colleagues while sitting with me during work. At first, I thought it was okay to listen to her and participate in her conversations because I was a newbie to the field. I had so much to learn about work, and I wanted to impress my manager, show my dedication to the job, and show her that I was a trustworthy employee and even get promoted by the next year. But apparently, she was also gossiping about me to my colleagues and spreading rumors that weren't true. Man, as a result, the atmosphere of the workplace had become toxic over a few months to the point that I wanted to leave immediately. We colleagues got together one day and spoke about this and shared what was going on and what the manager had been telling us about each other. This manager had managed to poison our hearts against each other. So there came a point where I was just done with this toxicity and something went wrong with my behavior, because of which I burst out and directed all my anger to the wrong person. Long story short, I was soon sitting in the director's office and telling him how my frustration of having to work in a toxic environment caused me to misbehave. We discussed what the problem was, when it started, and soon came to the root of the issue. As my director did his investigation, inquiries were done, and the manager was caught. She was let go soon after. I still remember and cannot forget that look on her face. It almost said, "Et tu, Brute?" I was not happy about all of this, and that I became responsible for letting the person go. But I was definitely relieved that it was all over. So, what went wrong? Whose fault was it? Why did it come to the point where someone had to be fired? The answer is boundaries. I understood the importance of setting boundaries in the workplace out of that experience. Now, here are a few questions for you to reflect upon. Did you give too much leeway to certain people at work or even around you that they take up most of your time and drain you of your mental energy? Has there been a time in your life when you have neglected your personal life and relationships because of not setting boundaries when it came to work? Or did you set boundaries to ensure that personal life and your mental health were not affected? If so, let me know by putting it down in the comments if you are listening to this. Hi, this is Somin and welcome back to Life with Somin Das. This is the third episode of our series, Power of Words We Speak. And today we will talk about the importance of setting boundaries in our professional lives. The dictionary defines gossip as casual or unconstrained conversations or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed as being true. I would like to emphasize on conversation and not confirmed as being true. Conversations consist of words, and gossip consists of words that are not confirmed to be true. I hope you get it. According to research, individuals who were being gossiped about were negatively impacted, directly or indirectly. For instance, gossiping about somebody can destroy their personal self-confidence and affect their self-esteem. I mean, think about it. People around them now see them in a different light and start behaving differently with them. Friendly smiles become blank or ugly stares. Your colleagues might start talking to you in a condescending tone, or probably just stop talking to you altogether, right? The same research showed that gossiping could lead to depression, suicidal thoughts, eating disorders, anxiety, or maybe even extreme anger, bitterness, rebellion, and a host of other issues. Basically, gossip at workplace breaks down trust. It can alienate colleagues, ruin reputations, and even lead to ostracizing behavior and other forms of relational aggression. Just imagine working in that place, such environment for 5 or 6 days a week. Mind-numbing. Alright. Before we move on, let's clarify something. When you are employed by an organization, you are an employee of that organization, not a slave. I repeat, you are an employee of that organization and not a slave. You have value and you are giving the organization your time and skills. You must first recognize that. You do not have to be obliged to do anything they ask you apart from your agreed job description. And don't slog and work to an extent of ruining your health to please your employer. That being said, I don't mean you have to behave and work rebelliously, take advantage of your employer and spoil your image. I'd rather say be professional, work right and work smart. You might ask, but how, Somin? Good question. Well, we'll soon come to that. When you join a workplace, and even if you're working somewhere now, it's not too late to set boundaries. Setting boundaries from the start allows you to navigate your workplace, avoid potentially toxic environments, and create a clear path for you to do your best work without being taken advantage of or burning out. Sometimes it can be confusing to know what boundaries to set and how. But in this episode, we're going to learn to set healthy boundaries so you can preemptively protect your mental health. Let's start with physical boundaries. If you're having trouble with physical boundaries at work, it's most likely that all of your boundaries are being violated. Here are some examples of setting physical boundaries. Offer handshakes over hugs. Let people know that you're comfortable or uncomfortable with their physical behavior towards you. Respect people's space and they will know that they have to respect yours. Don't attend any work events after 7 p.m. unless it was scheduled. Say no to working on the weekends unless it was scheduled in advance. Take your sick days and your mental health days. Have a tell to show other employees that you're busy. For example, wearing headphones or closing your room's door, etc. Remember, these are not some stone-etched laws or rules. These are meant to give you an idea of how you can set boundaries You can create your own depending on what kind of people you have around you and the type of workspace you have. Next, let's talk about mental boundaries. Preserving mental energy is crucial to being productive and avoiding burnout. Here are some ways to preserve your mental energy by setting boundaries. Set your working hours and stick to them. Decline superfluous meetings, which means meetings which never end, and encourage management to run more efficient meetings. Set away messages when engaged in deep work mode. Do not engage anything that can be perceived as gossip, especially about others in your workplace. Finally, let's talk about emotional boundaries. By setting emotional boundaries, you're giving yourself permission to disallow someone else's bad day from affecting yours. Here are some ways to set emotional boundaries at the workplace. Communicate upfront how you'd like to give and receive feedback. If it is about individual feedback, let them know that you would either like it written as an email or in person and not in the crowd. Do not imprint on someone else's bad mood or outburst. Listen, empathize, and suggest talking about it after work over a cup of coffee. Delegate work when necessary, and create a schedule that prioritizes balance between work and life. Remember, it might feel unnatural at first, but setting boundaries can help you navigate your workplace, avoid toxic environments, and ultimately do your best work without being taken advantage of or burning out. Okay. Now, let's talk about how not to speak when it comes to setting boundaries. Because remember, this episode is on the power of words. One most common mistake people make is not being clear about their boundaries. For example, instead of saying, "I'm not comfortable working overtime," they might say, "I'll see what I can do," or "I'll try my best." This sends the message that their boundaries are flexible and can be pushed. Another mistake is being aggressive when setting boundaries. Instead of saying, "I will not work overtime and you cannot make me," it is more efficient and effective to say, "I'm not able to work overtime, but I can finish this project by the deadline if we prioritize the work." Now, there are ways to effectively communicate your boundaries. Firstly, it is essential to be clear and concise. For example, "I am not available to work on the weekend" sends a clear message that your personal time is important to you. Secondly, it is important to be assertive but not aggressive. I repeat, it is important to be assertive and not aggressive. For example, "I understand that this project is important, but I need to take care of my health and I cannot work overtime." This is a good way to assert your boundaries without being confrontational. Now, when you are in a conflict with a coworker, it is essential to set boundaries to prevent the situation from escalating further. For example, if a coworker is constantly interrupting you during meetings, you can say, "I appreciate your input, but I need to finish my thoughts before we can move on to the next topic. Can we agree to give each other space to speak uninterrupted?" And when you are interviewing for a job, it is essential to set boundaries with the interviewer to ensure that you are comfortable with the position and the expectations. For example, If the interviewer asks you if you're comfortable working overtime and you're not, you can say, I prefer to work within a set schedule and prioritize my personal life outside work. Can you tell me more about the expected work hours for this position? This communicates your boundaries while still expressing interest in the position. Cool. So I have another story for you. Jane had been working at her new job for a few weeks when she noticed that her boss had a habit of calling her after hours and on weekends to discuss work-related matters. At first, she didn't mind, as she was eager to make a good impression and prove herself to be a hard worker. However, as time went on, Jane found herself feeling increasingly burnt out and overwhelmed. She realized that her boss's constant calls and texts were invading her personal time and making it difficult for her to disconnect from work. One day, Jane decided to set some boundaries with her boss. She sent him an email outlining her working hours and requesting that he not contact her outside those time unless it was an emergency. So she also asked for more clarity around her responsibilities and deadlines so she could better manage her workload. At first, Jane was nervous about how her boss would react for her setting boundaries. But to her surprise, he was supportive and understanding. He apologized for overstepping and acknowledged that he needed to do a better job of respecting his employees outside of work. From that day forward, Jane noticed a significant improvement in her work-life balance. She felt more in control of her workload and was able to disconnect from work during her personal time. By setting boundaries, Jane had not only protected her mental health, but had also gained the respect of her boss and co-workers. In conclusion, the power of words in the workplace is significant. Setting boundaries from the start allows you to navigate your workplace well, avoid potentially toxic environments, and create a clear path for you to do the best work without being taken advantage of or burning out. The three important areas of boundaries are physical boundaries, mental boundaries, and emotional boundaries. As we move forward in our careers, let's remember the impact our words can have on those around us and strive to use language that is positive, respectful, and supportive. In our next episode, we will discuss the benefits of gratitude. Expressing gratitude and being grateful can do wonders in life. So be sure to tune in next time for Life with Saumin Das. Thank you for listening. This is your host Saumin Das signing off.